We should be on
Yeah.
Tuesday. Um,
It's the ones we
base,
didn't with today. Yeah, so it's a Gimel base. Okay,
Gimbal base. Okay,
I'll do all these ones from yesterday and from today. We've got the time. Okay.
okay, Gimbal base.
So Hamotzi Poalav B'Sadeh. So he takes his workers out into the field. Bisman she'ein lahem alav mezonos. If they don't have mezonos baked into their contract, ochlin nepatorim, then they're allowed to eat, and that's fine because he's just giving them a gift basically. And
Joel, I don't see you. I don't. Sorry, I don't see you at your desk.
my
I
video,
just see a
thank
picture
you.
of you.
Just have a look to turn on my video. Okay.
There we go. Okay, okay, good.
All right. So they're allowed to eat and they don't have to take Maasros while they're in the field. Im yesh lahem alav mazonos. If, however, part of their contract is that the Bala Sadeh is supposed to feed them, then every time they're eating, he's basically fulfilling the contract. So now we've got a bit of a problem. But they do have an eitzah. Ochlin achas achas minateina. They're allowed to take one at a time. As long as they're not completing the transaction, it's not then they can still consider it casually eating as long as they're only picking one by one.
Okay.
About lo min hasal, but they cannot take from the basket because the basket's the already picked stuff, without mastering it. That is, v'lo min hakupa, v'lo min hamuktzeh, not from the bigger basket where they're placing things, and not from the drying area, from the shetach where they take things to dry. Hasocher is a poil lasos bezeisim. He hires a worker to work with olives. Amalo almanas lechol zeisim. He says, okay, but that's on condition that I can eat olives. Um, so this is talking not in harvest time. This is talking just about doing maintenance work. So otherwise, it would be minatori he's entitled. So he says, no, but I want to be able to eat the olives. He said, okay, you can eat the olives. Ochel echad echadu patur, same as the figs. You can take them one by one, and it's patur. I don't know how you actually eat raw olives, but okay. Um, but this guy can. Im terev chayav, and if he took two, then now he has to take chumas and masros from everything that he picks. Lenakesh babatalim, if he's going and weeding the olives, or the onions, he's weeding
Good.
the onions, which means he's not actually harvesting the onions. He doesn't have any entitlement to eat onions, but he negotiated. Amar lo almanas lechol yarak. He says, I want to be able to eat the shoots that come out of the onion. Mekatem ale ale ve'ochel. He's allowed to cut off one leaf at a time and munch on that. Ve'im tzeref chayav. But if he had more than one at a time, then it is chayav and shumas and masras. Mishna dalad matzah ketzios b'derech. If he finds figs on the road, afilu b'tzad tzadeh ketzios. Even if it's next to a field, obviously somebody owns a field of figs. And even if you have a fig tree where the branches overhang the public road, and he finds figs on the road underneath it. Mutaros mishum gezel puturos mina masros. They are permitted to him. He doesn't have to worry about returning them because he knows who the owner is. Puturos mina masros, and he doesn't have to take chumas and masros because he's taking from hefker. Basically, what we're saying is that these figs are totally hefker, and so therefore it comes in one breath. He's allowed to take them, and and he doesn't need to take chumas and masros. However, when it comes to olives and carobs in exactly the same position, nope, chayav. He's chayav from gezel, and the owner would have to take chumas and masros because it's not hefker. Okay, what's the difference between figs and olives and carobs? When
What's the
when
difference?
when figs fall on the ground, they go splat.
Ah, I didn't
That's
know that.
that's the difference. Olives and
Really?
carobs, if they fall on the ground, you pick them up, dust them off, and they're fine. Figs spoil when they're on the ground, and anything that falls, the owner's already given up on because they've got a very thin skin, and bugs will climb into them in no time.
Oh,
So matzah groguros. What happens if he finds dried figs? Okay. In darsu rov b'nei adam chayav. If most people have already pressed their figs, then he's chayav to take chumas and masros. For im lav patur. But if not, then then he's patur from taking from taking because it's considered that it's not yet finished gamar malacha.
Yeah.
What's pilchay devela? What happens if he finds slices of fig cakes? Okay, well that's definitely chayav. Sheyadua shehein midvar gamor because that is the gamar malacha. Once it's made into a fig cake, it's gamar malacha. So if he finds it, he must assume that it requires chumas and maasros, and question: would he actually have to take truma as well? Could he assume that the owner would have at least taken truma if he was an amaretz? But maybe it's but at least with demai he would have to take have to take the shum demai. B'charuvin ad shelo kanasan le rosh hagag. Carobs until he's taken them up to the roof which is where they dry them. Okay. Um, Morid mehem labahema upatur. So he can take from his pile of carobs and give them to his animal, and he doesn't have to take chumas and masters before he feeds the animal. Why? It's not the Gemara Lacharet. Why? How do you know that? Mipnei shehu machzir is the mosar. Whatever he doesn't feed to his animals, he's going to take back and put
The
uh,
other thing.
with the rest. So you know it's already not Gemara Malacha.
Okay.
All right,
Good.
now Mishnah for today. Mishna hey. Ezohi chatzer shehi chayeves b'masros. So we said that if a person brings produce into his chatzer, that's going to be kovea for masros. Okay, so now we see the definitions of what constitutes a chatzer. Rabbi Shmuel Omer chatzer hatzoris. It's a Tyrian chatzer shehakelim nishmaros besocha. So even if it's just a courtyard that you keep your kalim in, that's chayav in Maasros. Rabbi Akiva Omer kol she'echad poseach echad noel patura. If you have a situation where it's shared by two people and one person would come and open the gate and another person would close the gate, he says that situation is patur. Okay, Rabbi Nechemia Omer kol she'ein adam bosh milichol b'tzocha chayeves. If it's affords a person enough privacy that he would happily eat without in it and not worry. I mean, I guess socially things have changed a little bit because nowadays people will like walk in the street and eat. You'll have people munching on fruit in the street, sort of a casual thing. But I think what you wouldn't typically have in the streets over here is like somebody walking around and eating a hamburger or something. That's like, that's a little
Eat
boorish.
ice cream and stuff. Ice
Yeah?
cream and stuff.
And ice cream, so
Ice cream.
casual things. So I think what we're talking about over here in the Mishnah is where somebody would actually be comfortable to pull up a table and sit down and have a meal. And that's yeah, that like you wouldn't do that in the street.
Right.
You wouldn't do that in the shared property with your neighbor. You do it only in your own property and in a place okay. So that's called a chater. And you probably wouldn't even do it in your own field because it's the field we know is not kovei lemaser. Okay, kol shenichnas Rabbi Yossi Omer kol shenichnas la ve'ein omer lo. Anyone where any matam vakesh betura. So basically, he's saying the dividing line is if somebody walked into your chatzer and you said to him, "Good morning, can I help you?" That shows that that's a private space.
Hmm.
Okay, and that means that this is your chatzer and it's also kover for chumas and masros. Okay, Rabbi Yehuda Omer shtei chatzeros ze lifnim mizot. So if you have the two coming, hapenimis chayeves v'achitzona patur. The outer one is the inner one is chayev and the outer one is patur. And lahalacha we actually are choshesh for all of these. So anyway, basically, even if somebody says something is patur, you look and say, okay, what's the converse, and say that's chayev according to him. And lahalacha we hold like all of them lahachmir. Okay, hagagos paturin. However, the roof is patur. So even if you've got a structure in the middle of your chatzer, and there's let's say there's a tree that's overhanging the roof, and you go up onto the roof and pick fruit and put it down on the roof, that is still patur, and you could still snack on it, even though technically you're inside your chatzer when you're picking the fruit, but you're standing up on the roof. So that will still be pater because you're not in the actual space of the chatzar. You're in a separate rishus. Afal pi shehem shel chatzar chayeves. Beis Hashar. Now, what about the gatehouse? So let's say there's a gatehouse for somebody to sit in and watch over an area, or a sadra, a corridor, or merpeses, or merpeses. It's not like what it's a gazustra. Yeah, it's like a merpeses that we've got some sort of a balcony that's attached to the chatzer. Harei elu kechatzer. They take on the din of the chatzer that they're in. Im chayeves chayavin, im patur paturin. So whatever the halacha is of the chatzer that they're attached to, that's the din of these things. Okay, and third Mishnah for the day. Hatzrifin. A tzarif is a kind of a hut. V'burganin v'altakios. Okay, burganin is a migdal shmira. It's again a guardhouse.
Okay, they call it a cone-shaped hut.
A cone-shaped hut, right? But
And anything else?
alkatios or sukkot, bishvil yomot. It's basically a summer shelter.
Right.
Okay, all of those are patur, assuming they're not inside inside a chutzah. We're talking about something that's a standalone. Okay, Sukkos Ginosar, the hut of Ginosar being which is the place by Yam Kinneret. Okay, and people would sit there in Sukkot that they made on their roofs and in their orchards for most of the year to look after their fruit because it's a very fertile area. Okay, so the Sukkot Ginosar, Afal Pisha Yesh Ba Rechaim V'Tarnagolim B'Torah. Even though people are there for a lot of time, and they've even set up things like mills and chickens and whatever, it's still patur. It's not considered a chatzar. Sukkos HaYotzrim, the shelter of the yotzer is somebody I think it makes
This is called a potter's hut.
they make clay cheres, yeah. So they make the people who make earthenware vessels. Hapanim is chayeves. The inner one is chayev v'hachitzona patur, but the outer one is still patur. Rabbi Yossi Omer kol she'ena diras hachama v'diras geshamim patura. He says Rabbi Yossi, it's got to be a year-round thing that people stay in it. Right? It can't be just seasonal. If it's seasonal, it's not considered a fixed abode, and it's not it doesn't have the effect of making you chayev in Trumas and Maasros. Okay, sukkah sachag, the chag. What about the sukkah, the actual sukkah that you go into on sukkahs? Okay, Rabbi Yehuda mechayev v'chachamim pochin. So Rabbi Yehuda goes the whole hog and says, okay, this is now your diras keva. This is actually the place that you're staying for sukkahs. And now it's koveah for Trumas and Maasros. And everyone else says, nah, this is they follow the statement of Rabbi Yossi, which says if you don't live there all year round, it's not koveah and kach halacha. Okay.
Right. You had me looking down because I saw the cat's head, and I said, "My cat's not here." I'm looking.
Do you have a cat that looks like this?
Okay. We go back to Gazora.
No, Trumas.
Trumas. All right, Trumas, right. Trumas, right.
With Aleph Zion.
Okay. Done. So too, if a jar of trefa oil, truma oil was upset, he is not enjoined to sit down and scoop it up, but deals with it as he would with chulin. If one person pours from one jar into another and allows 3 drops to drip, he may put it into chulin. If he inclined it and drained it, is a truma. And how much truma ma'aser of damai need there be to require him to take to the priest? 1/8 of an eighth. Vetches of truma may be fed to cattle, undomestic animals, and fowls. And if a non-priest hired a cow from a priest, he may feed it with vetches of truma. But if a priest hired a cow from a non-priest, though he is responsible for its food, he may not feed it with truma vetches. The non-priest who received an appraised cow from a priest may not feed it with truma vetches, but a priest who received an appraised cow from a non-priest may feed it with vetches of truma. Okay. And we should be on Aleph Dalet. No, I'm sorry.
Aleph Ches.
Yeah.
Yeah, Aleph Ches in Trumas.
Right.
Yeah.
One may not separate truma from oil for olives, which are due to be crushed, or from wine for grapes that are due to be trodden. But if he did separate, his truma is truma. But if he must separate again, the first of it by itself renders meduma, and one is liable for it to the added fifth, but not the second. One may separate truma from oil for olives, which are due to be preserved, and from wine for grapes, which are due to be made into raisins. If one separated truma from oil for olives intended for eating, from olives for olives intended for eating, from wine for grapes intended for eating, or from grapes intended for eating, and then he decided to shred them, he need not separate truma. Okay,
And Yod as well.
I skipped one. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
also do Yod.
Um, wait a second. I did
Aleph
something
Yod.
wrong.
Yeah, you only did two Mishnah, so you do a third one.
I lost where I am. Okay. Um,
Aleph Yod.
base olive, correct?
No, Aleph Yod. Did you do Aleph? Sorry, did I miss that? Did you do Aleph Yod?
Yes. No. One may not separate truma from produce which is in a finished state for produce which is in an unfinished state, or from produce in an unfinished state for produce in a finished state, or from produce in an unfinished state for produce in an unfinished state. But if he did separate truma, his truma is truma. Okay, now we got
Now Paya.
it. Okay. Hey. Okay. Dollar. Paya, they do not reap with sickles, and they do not uproot it with spades, lest they strike one another. Three times in the day, in the morning, at midday, and at mincha time, Rabbi Gamil says they stated this as a minimum. Rabbi Kiva says they stated this as a maximum of Beit Namar, which collected by the rope, they give payah from each furrow. If a non-Jew reached his field and afterwards he converted, he is exempt from leket, but shikaka, and from payah. Rabbi Yehuda obligates regarding shikaka, for shikaka is only at the time of the imur. Okay, and we are on to Olios. Okay, Yud Zion base. If a person was plowing and he struck a rock or a fence and he shook out the plow until that point, it is the base of pras. Rabbi Eliezer says one base of pras can make another base of pras. Rabbi Yehuda says sometimes it does and sometimes it does not. How so? If one plows half a furrow and then plows the other half to the sides, this makes another heap base of pras. However, if he plows a furrow's length and then plows from that point on, a base of pras the base of pras does not make another base of pras. If a person plows over a pit containing corpses, through a pile of bones, through a field in which a grave was lost, through a field in which a grave was subsequently found, or through a field that was not his property, or a Gentile plows, it does not make a base of pras, because the ruling of base of pras does not apply to Kuthians. If a base of pras field is above a tahor field, and rain washed down soil from the base of pras to the tahor field, even if the field was red and now it turned white, or white and now it turned red, the base of pras soil does not make the tahor field into a base of pras.
Okay.
Okay.
What is Zara?
Okay. Hey, Yud. If Nesic wine fell into a cistern wine of ordinary wine, all of it is prohibited for benefit. Rabbi Shimon Gamil says it should be sold or to a Gentile, except for the value of the Nesic wine that is in. A stone wine press, which an idolater coated with pitch, one dries it and is cleansed. With a wooden press, Rebbe says he should dry it, but the sages say he must peel off the pitch. But an earthen press, even though he peeled off the pitch, is forbidden. If one acquires food utensils from a Gentile, if it is a customary way to immerse, he should immerse it. To boil, he should boil it. To purge in fire, he should purge it in fire. And the spit in the grill, one purges in fire, the knife, and one polishes it, and it is purified.
Hadron
Okay.
Allah. Seches Avodah Zarah. Tomorrow we start Pirkei Avos.
Well, Horios tomorrow. Horios.
No, Avos.
Abos.
Yeah, not
Oh, and
Holocaust.
this one Horios is next. Okay, Abos. Okay.
Yeah, there's a bit of a machlokes in the Masorah if Avos comes before Horios. On my volume over here, it actually on the spine it says Avos first and then Horios, but in the binding it's got Horios before
Other
Avos,
way.
and the Hadron Alach is after Horios. So
Okay.
not
All right.
big.
Avos.
Yeah.
Rabbi Gamliel says there is no validity to a bill of divorce after a bill of divorce, nor to mama after mama, nor to cohabitation after cohabitation, nor to kalitza after kalitza. The sages, however, say there is a validity to the bill of divorce after a bill of divorce, and to mama after mama, but after cohabitation or after kalitza, there is nothing. How so? If you perform mama with a javama and then gave her a bill of divorce, she requires kalitza from him. If he performed mama with her and then kalitza, she requires a bill of divorce from him. If he performed mama and then cohabitated with her, he has done it properly. If he gave her a bill of divorce and then mama, he requires a bill of divorce and kalitza. If he gave her a bill of divorce and then cohabitated with her, she requires a bill of divorce and kalitza. If he gave her a bill of divorce and then kalitza, there is nothing after kalitza. If he performed kalitza with her and then performed mama with her, or gave her a bill of divorce, or cohabitated with her, or if he cohabitated with her and then performed mama, or gave her a bill of divorce, or performed kalitza with her, there is nothing at the kalitza. It is the same whether it is one yavama with one yavama or two yavama with one yavama. Yavam. Okay. All right.
Hey, and
Thank
we
you.
done.
Thank you for coming early. I didn't even know
Sure.
Dan wasn't going to be there. I